The Omega Omega service is a rite of passage that Delta Sigma Theta sorority gives its deceased sorors. It is altogether fitting that we, sorors of Delta Sigma Theta, pause here in a moment of loving tribute to our dear sister. Delta sorors everywhere who have received the sad message are deeply touched and grieved. Our deepest sympathy is extended to the family of soror Barbara Elaine Jackson Krosky. We are born for a higher destiny than that of earth. There is a realm where the rainbow never fades, where the stars will be spread before us like islands that slumber on the ocean, and where the beings that pass before us like shadows will stay in our presence.
She is not dead who lives in the hearts she leaves behind. In those whom she has blessed, she lives a life again and shall live through the years eternal life and grow each day more beautiful as the time declares her good, forgets the rest, and proves her immortality.
Sorors, we gather as a final act of loyal sisterhood to our soror, Barbara Elaine Jackson Krosky, who departed this life on July 14, 2020. Now that her mortal life is ended, we remember with joy the good she leaves behind.
Heaven is a place where death is no more. Tears are wiped away and troubles never come. If there is no other life, if this earthly existence is all there is for man, then the Creator's plan never accomplishes one permanent thing and ends in colossal failure. I believe that my soror and mentor, Barbara Elaine Jackson Krosky, loved God, loved her family, especially her daughter, Carol Lynette, her church, and her community. I also believe that she learned at an early age all about heaven and the requirements for getting there. I came to know of Mrs. Krosky in the late 1960s, during my high school years while a student at Stone High, Melbourne. Notice that I emphasized that I knew of her. As years evolved, I learned that she was a member of my AME Church connection at Mount Moriah AME Church, CoCoa, and a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Incorporated. In 1970, after becoming a pyramid at Beta Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, graduating from college and relocating to Melbourne, I was invited to join a membership interest group for the recently chartered Brevard County Area Alumni Chapter. I was honored, for my greatest desire was to become a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. During this process, I was afforded the wonderful opportunity to become more familiar with this lady. At that time, I really got to know Barbara Elaine Jackson Krosky. Barbara Krosky became a member of Beta Alpha chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in May 1955, while matriculating at Florida A&M University. Along with 17 other sorority members of Brevard County, Barbara sought and successfully applied for a charter for a Brevard County chapter. On its chartering date, February 10, 1968, our Special Pearl served as the first president of the Brevard County Area Alumni Chapter, later known as Brevard County Alumni Chapter. She served passionately and faithfully throughout her term, though her health began to fail. By her presence and actions, we were able to learn the importance of patience and perseverance. Our sister leaves a void in this chapter, and we will never forget her. We will hold treasured moments of her deep within our hearts. Epitaphs are known to pervert facts and to stretch truth. Sympathy seeks to say good things about a person. All I could ever say about my sister are good things. She was a living example of our values: dedication, kindness, mercy, honesty, dependability, and the greatest of all, love. Barbara has found peace and happiness. She lived a fruitful life, performed her professional duties, blended her life with all of us in such a way as to be unselfish, always tried to make others happy, and trusted in the Lord. Let this be her epitaph. Soror Barbara Elaine Jackson Krosky remained true to her sacred word of honor. She loved Delta and its ideals and faithfully attempted to realize them in her daily life. She sought to be compassionate, loving as a sister, tender-hearted, and humble-minded. She lived fully and laughed often. She appreciated Earth's beauty. She looked for the best in others and gave the best she had. Her life was an inspiration, and her memory will be a benediction.
O thou in whose presence my soul takes delight, on whom in affliction I call, my comfort by day and my song in the night, I hope my salvation, my all. Where dost thou, dear shepherd, resort with thy sheep, to feed them in pastures of love? Say, why in the valley of death should I weep, or alone in this wilderness roam? Oh, why should I wander, an alien from thee, or cry in the desert for bread? Thy foes will rejoice when my sorrows they see, and smile at the tears angels rejoice, and myriads wait for his word. He speaks, and eternity filled with his voice re-echoes the praise of the Lord. Dear shepherd, I hear and will follow thy call. I know the sweet sound of thy voice. Restore and defend me, for thou art my all, and in thee I will ever rejoice.
She added to the psalm of human joy, and if everyone to whom she offered love and service were to bring a blossom to her grave, she would sleep tonight beneath a wilderness of flowers. The record of a generous life runs like a vine across the memory of this Sorah, and every sweet, unselfish act is now a perfumed flower.
Speech cannot contain our love. There is no gentler sorrow. Ample make this bed with awe. In it wait till judgment break, excellent and fair. Be its mattress straight, be its pillow round. Let no sunrise's yellow noise interrupt this ground.
There is no death. The stars go down to rise upon some other shore, and bright in heaven's jeweled crown they shine forevermore. And ever near us, though unseen, the dear immortal spirits tread, for all the boundless universe is life. There is no death.
Paraphrase from Revelations 21, 1 through 7. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be them and with their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain. For the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And he said unto me, It is done. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and I will give freely unto her who is athirst from the fountain of the waters of life. She who overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be her God, and she shall be my child.
do much stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. As long as Delta's numbers continue to multiply, I shall live on. I will not die. For in Delta, women who care and give perpetuate my name, and so I live. I bid you be brave, my sisters, daring and strong, holding high the torch and carry on. Do not sit at my grave and cry, I am not there. My spirit in Delta will not die.
Sing the wondrous love of Jesus. Sing his mercy and his grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, he'll prepare for us a place when we all get to heaven. What a day of rejoicing that will be when we all see Jesus. We will sing and shout the victory while we walk the pilgrim pathway. Clouds will overspread the sky, but when traveling days are over, not a shadow, not a sign. Let us then be true and faithful, trusting, serving every day. Just one glimpse of him in glory, with the toils of life repaid. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be sing and shout the victory.
A man that hath friends must show himself friendly. Proverbs 18:24. It was approximately 1966, by divine providence, I met Barbara Crosby. I had just recently graduated from college, and this was my first year in Lake County teaching at Dabney Elementary School as a music teacher. Barbara was already there working in education at Rhymes Elementary. Little did I know our paths would cross then and a few years later. I was new, so basically I was rooming with a person, Miss Willie Mae Mathis, in her home. And I worked at Dabney at the time that there was still segregation, and the schools were primarily and all black. So there was a nice network of us working together as teachers and colleagues and community workers bonding together there in Leesburg. Soon as working and wanting to knit with the community, I was coerced, actually, encouraged to do a recital with another graduate that was a member of the Stillettes, Barbara Coney. So together we did a recital at the community center on Venetian Way. That was when I met Barbara personally following the recital. She came up and introduced herself, and unbeknownst to me, she was a music enthusiast also, so we had a long talk. But within 10 years or less, my family moved here to Brevard County, where my husband worked, was transferred here. So I joined this church around 1972, and lo and behold, Barbara was a member of this church, and she was singing in the choir, directed by Theron Sawyer. And so she knew that I played classically, and she approached me later on that year for us to join with her choir, well, Theron's choir, Metropolitan, to do a Christmas cantata. And that we did as friends, and we grew in harmony, and our relationship grew and grew and grew, and we continued those until she couldn't do the cantatas anymore. Also, a sisterly bond was made with Delta, because she was also Delta, and we found this out in our discussions and talking and going to the meetings at Rosebud Nursery School here in CoCoa. So we knew each other well, and the other tying bond is that we happened to be born in the same month. So it was a great time working with Barbara as a friend and knowing her as a friend, and her tenacity, her determination, and will to see things through. She was a very dedicated person. So I leave you with these words. She was a gem, and we still love that gem and think of her. And we wish we'll be soon in the heavenly choir when Jesus calls us home, because we know she's up there prepping and practicing for us to do another cantata. God bless.
I knew Sorrel Barbara, and we in the same district. When I graduated from high school in 1968 and chose to attend a technical school in Cocoa Beach, it was Sorrel Barbara who transported a then 17-year-old back and forth from Marion County to Brevard County when I wanted to go home to visit my my family, but always using Highway 441 and 520. She never drove the interstate. And all that never spoke about Delta. It was only after I became a Delta in 1994, I found out she was my Delta sister. In loving memory of my dear friend Sora Barbara Crosby, her spirit forever shines bright in our hearts. Her kindness, laughter, and cherished memories will be cherished and remembered always. Rest in peace, knowing you are deeply loved and missed.
As we extinguish the candles representing the fundamental principles and the torch of wisdom, we are also reminded of the 9 candles in our beloved Sigma, which represents the 9 cardinal virtues of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. These lights are extinguished, symbolizing the passage of our soror into Omega chapter. Let us relight their meaning in our own hearts. This, in the end, is the most fitting tribute to our beloved soror, Barbara Elaine Jackson Crosby.
Into thy gracious keeping, leave we now our sorrow sleeping. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
But I don't need a mic. But my dear friends, my dear friends, to my left from the Florida State University, Mr. Keith Morrell, I told my cousin, we lived in the same dorm, if you could believe that. And he said he lived on the first floor and I lived on the seventh floor, but indeed we did. Our dorm is no longer there, but whenever I see these two, I'm so glad to see he and his wife, Bernadette, whose mother, I am her namesake. My name is Lynette. My middle name is Lynette, and we spell it the same way. Not L-Y-N, and there's a story behind mine. My grandmothers were Nettie and Beulah Lee, and I do have a birth certificate that L-Y-N, that L-Y is crossed out, because my grandmother said, if you're going to be named by one, you're going to be named for the other one too. So my name is Lynette, just like Bernadette's mother. Pastor, would you join me, please, for a moment? Oh, no, before I do that. Mr. Johnson, I know that this was a great sacrifice for you to do our audio visuals today, and I want you to know I appreciate that so much. And I'm going to give this to Miss Brown so that when you come down, in case I'm doing something else, the blue box is yours. Pastor, Kennerly and I do go way back. Bernadette knows about the YPDers, and Celia knows about the YPDers, but we are all YPDers who, he and I spent a lot of time on Kings Road, called 1649 Kings Road, across from Edward Waters College, at the home of Reverend Presiding Elder and Mrs. T.E. Sheehy, as our days have gone and come. But I will never forget those days, and I am grateful for the opportunity to have come today to have you open the doors for us. And I thank you, because when Lonnie talked about Theron and the Metropolitan and St. Paul too, they had to be a part of those cantatas. Isn't that right, Sylvia? So they all had to be a part of that. And I had to sit and listen to the rehearsals. And not only did she participate, they all participated here, but when she spent some time with me at Bethel, Tallahassee, they had to learn those cantatas too. And hello, Keith. Good to see you, sir. Keith was a second grader at Poinsett McNair, at Poinsett. So his mother was a curriculum coordinator at Poinsett when I was a little girl, and he was a much, much younger man. I want to thank you for this opportunity to come back to this place called Mount Moriah, or as Kimberly used to call it, Aunt Moriah. Couldn't get that mount out of there, but it's Aunt Moriah. And one of the things I was telling my cousin is these stained glass windows, they had to be transferred and refitted for this sanctuary. And I was teasing them about Benny Johnson, who was the pastor that built this edifice. I said, you got that from Bethel, Tallahassee, because we had to have our windows refitted. And he brought that Rogers with him too, but that was an idea he got from Bethel, Tallahassee, my other church. I'm a member of 4 AME churches: St. Paul, Ocala, Mount Moriah, CoCoa, Greater Allen Chapel, Melbourne, and Bethel, Tallahassee. That's because we're a connectional church and you can do that. But on behalf of the memory of my mother, who served as a steward here at Mount Moriah. Now, I may have that wrong, Mr. Knighton, but I thought that Reverend Smith let her be the first chair pro tem, and I may have that wrong, but in my mind, she was the first chair pro tem female of Mount Moriah. But to that memory and the steward board, please accept this as my thank you for all of that, all that she meant to Mount Moriah, and all that Mount Moriah meant to her. Mount Moriah meant a lot to my mother. I kid you not. And I can go back to the first Reverend Smith, and I can go back to, I want to say Michael Cousin. I spent some time there, but that's as far as I'm going. He says I'm telling on myself, but that's as far as I can go. Thank you so much, my brother. And know that I am so grateful for this opportunity. Miss Patrick, my cousin kept my little gray bag for me, my little orange bag for me. I'm going to give this back to her because I don't want to lose some other things in there. And yes, ma'am. And I thank Mr. Johnson especially for giving us the opportunity to be streamed, because there are some ladies and some gentlemen from all over the connectional AME church, but all over, I would say, even Kingston, Jamaica. Sheila McKeithen is watching today. And I had to remember it's 2 o'clock, not 3 o'clock for her. And I know that there's some other people who are smiling. I want you to know that Doris Corbett is watching today. I hope Sinesta Jones is watching today. And I know that they're having a serious sorority meeting with Gwen Jenkins, Edna Jackson, Mildred Jones, Ann Borders, Miss Althea Haling, and I remember her too, Mildred Wigfall, Yvonne Alsop, Adawa Mincy, Katie Randolph, Maxine White. And I hope Natalie's watching up in Philadelphia too. I really do, because I miss myself some Natalie Jerkins. I really, really do. And I hope Hallie James Simpson, who is a part of the original 18. She's from Ocala. Her aunt was married to my uncle. So there are so many connections. And Mott reminded me that she was a class ahead of her in high school. I thought she was behind him, but she was not. And this was my little cheat sheet. But I want you to know that they told me that when you were at the set, Elsina, that I stood in the circle when Beta Alpha was getting ready to do a lot of things. And yes, you have reminded me there's hope for me yet. I know you did. Now, this I want to present so that Mrs. Brown can put, you can open that one, so that Mrs. Brown can do what she needs to do with those things. And the closet was well kept for that particular shirt, and the closet was well kept for this shirt, because for a minute or two there was that Tallahassee alumni chapter excitement, and this was a Delta Days at the Capitol. So I wanted to have that presented to you as well. Now, the only person that can vouch for this gift, and she's going to probably remember the situation. Do you know who did this one? Elsina? This is one of the only gifts I was able to salvage forever from the charter line in 1970. I have a feeling this came from Miss Ford. I have a feeling, but I'm not so sure. But this one is 52 years old. It has had nothing in it for the last 3 years. I just would not let it go that way. And this particular gift I want to give to you. I went to a jazz festival in Kansas. I went to the biennial in Kansas City one year, and there was a jazz festival. And while I was going around the event, this print was there. And our cousin, Jackie, this is what Jackie framed for my mother. And you can take that paper and just do whatever you want with it. But those are the things that I thought. Those are the things that I wanted to make sure that I no longer can decide what to do with. I decided what to do with them today. And they are gifts of the Brevard Alumni Chapter. No, Brenda, not the Ocala. The Brevard Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, because my mother loved, and by the way, that picture, that was at St. Paul, where the 13 of them gathered that day to take that picture. They were at St. Paul. And I know I was sitting in that audience, and I was really being good to make sure that that happened. And I want to say to Keith and to Cynthia, thank you so much, because Keith's mother was at Poinsett with my mother, McNair, was at Poinsett, and I will never forget all of those ladies. And I could just name people, because it's Mildred Jones, Elaine Young, all of those ladies, Sonesta Jones, they all taught at Poinsett. And it just happened to be a coincidence, I think, that they were all members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But they were teachers, and they could not, once that charter came, they could not let their principal not be a member of the charter line, Mrs. Naomi Ford, along with Janie Holman and Betty Champion and Elsina Jordan. And I'm missing somebody because I don't remember who that other person was. But the first person they thought of was their principal, and she was the dearest person in the world. And I thank you again for all that you've done today to make this memorable me. And I have a smile on my face because the memories here and the memories of that little girl standing in the circle will always remain with me. Thank you.
No, you need to come back up here. Because I'm telling you, although her mother passed July 2020, she was very, very persistent in making sure that this day happened in person. So we all know what has happened that kept us from having this day. So I told her after the numerous calls and good conversation, I said, we're going to make this happen. So thank you to everyone that attended today, and I'm so glad that we brought this closure to you.
When I forgot about the 50 years when we had to get here, that 50-year celebration, because Elsina and Lonnie were not going to let me not have that done. And I did what they told me, and I am so glad I did. I am so glad. They were giving me the instructions, and they said, a family member or friend? And I said, oh, I know just the person. And Bernadette, you and your alum can talk afterwards. But I do thank her for coming with us today, and I want her to know that I appreciate the effort that she made to come with me. Thank you so much.